Okay, there you go. Did you hear that? All right,
Yes.
we're being recorded. Okay, so welcome to the August meeting of IPMS Toronto. I see a lot of familiar faces here, and we have some new ones as well. Why don't we start with, I recognize Ming. You just joined us for the first time in a long time. Why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, so that was about 20 years.
Wow, already, eh?
Yes. So I was building model in the 90s. So I met you, Harvey, and a few folks. I recognize. Oh, let me see, Bill. I think I saw Bill somewhere. And I know Vince from a different life.
Hey,
Oh, hey.
Good stuff, Ming. I remember you now. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
So does that mean in the last 20 years you've built like 150,000 models, or?
No, it's like I bought 150,000 models. So I was I met some of you in shows and in contests and things like that. So, but I wasn't a member of the club. So recently I decided to quit my job and call it a career. So I'm now officially retired.
Well done, Ming.
So I'm thinking about with my 3 kids on their way, and they have their own lives and things like that, and so it's time to go back to my my hobby.
Good. Are you still in Toronto, Ming?
Yes, I'm still in Toronto. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, why don't you tell the folks what you build?
I'm more interested in armor, military tanks, and military vehicles. But I do occasionally build planes and also exotic cars, like racing cars and all that. But haven't achieved the shine of the paint yet. So obviously after leaving not building for 20 years, I almost forgotten about it now. So I have to relearn everything, and I hope to be able to learn from all of you. And slowly getting back to it. I recently tested my paints, thinners, and airbrush. After 20 years, they all work. They still work. They didn't dry it out. So that's good. I mean, that was I can call that was a deliberate saving for retirement. But yeah.
Oh, great. Well, I remember seeing your work before, so I'm sure you'll just bounce right back, Ming. So, welcome.
Well, there are new stuff, right? There are also new techniques.
A lot of new techniques, which I'll cover a bit on the weathering seminar tonight.
Right. That's why I welcomed today. You'll be talking about weathering. So
great.
That's good.
So welcome back. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of people on the spot because I see them here and they haven't been here in a while. Derek,
yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot because you're another one of the old veterans of IPMS. Can you introduce yourself, Derek?
And I'm guilty as charged. Well, just about myself, I've been retired from work for 7 years. I do a lot of work at home still. I have to apologize for missing 99% of the meetings, but I nevertheless do model at home. Once a modeler, always a modeler. These days, I find the models probably take longer. Maybe I'm just becoming more obsessed with detail. You hit a modeler's wall and you take a week off and then you get back to it. Anyway, right now I'm building a pair of Lockheed Jet Stars.
Nice.
One is by Anagrand and one is by Match 2. If you ever want to do yourself a favor, never buy a Match 2 Lockheed Jet Star. I spent weeks trying to make them look exactly like each other or as close as possible. And I'm going to hold this up. This is my Anagrand Lockheed Jet Star. I'm at the primer stage. I've attended to all the details such as little aerials, front wheel doors, symmetry, and matching as possible. And now I'm 99% done with the primer stage, and I'm going to start painting soon. So that's been my project for months.
Nice. Nice. And sorry, did you say what markings you're doing those in?
I will do them both in USAF military. One will be a Southeast Asia scheme, the green, green, and tan over gray. And the other will be the European lizard scheme. So to some extent, they'll match each other very much. It's just that there'll be differences in the color scheme, but both will be camouflaged Lockheed Jetstars.
Great.
I started out with a vacuum form Lockheed Jetstar, which I don't have in front of me right now. I thought that was perfect, but when I matched up the anagram kit to it, it was obviously too fat. The wings and control surfaces were too short, etc., etc. So when my two plastic and vac form and resin kits are done, I think I'm going to have to toss the vac form Jetstar.
Well, the language you're talking is the language that we all speak here, right? It's not accurate. You got to do this. You got to do.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird, eh?
It looks like a Jetstar on steroids.
Yeah. So yeah, welcome back. Welcome back, Derek.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to also put somebody else now. Now, we have here a guest that's always on, but he's not a Canadian, and I'm going to introduce Mark Norman. Mark, I think you're the only American. You don't have any colleagues on this call tonight. Why don't you introduce yourself, Mark? Mark is from New York, and why don't you say a few words, Mark?
We're returning the favor. Harvey has been a great ambassador for North America, and he's been on many, he's lent himself to many of our Zoom calls. But my particular affiliation is with the Hudson Valley IPMS, and to a lesser extent, Albany IPMS. And I model a lot of armor and aircraft, but never enough to sort of keep up with my acquisitions. But still, just in terms of an update with the US, they had a very large model show called MosquitoCon in New Jersey, which was pretty much the center of modeling for the whole New York area. And they got a good bump with COVID, post-COVID, of 600 models. Aircraft and tanks were about the same. The big jump they had was in the new, sci-fi and Gundam and all the emerging areas of our hobby. A lot of people that came, I think, it's a very weird time for a big model show. So you might be able to shave off 10% were on vacation, maybe 10% were concerned about the reemergence of the COVID thing. And but still, it was it was a step in the right direction. And we're going to have a show in October near Poughkeepsie, New York. And of course, we'd love to see you guys. Hopefully this thing reverses itself and we're back on track with the border opening. I think it's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for you guys visiting us, yeah. but we can't visit you guys. Yeah. But 600 models, that's pretty impressive. Like that's
right.
Impressive. Right.
And of course, everything, in the next, I think, 2 weeks, you'll get to probably see via Facebook and other posts how they do in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The airlines are in complete disarray down here. Flights are canceled. I'm sure you'll see a lot of horror stories of people that miss a day or two or can't get out there. Flights are getting canceled all over the place. So I know probably some of the people on this call might have been interested in going, but if there's going to be a year to sort of like not go, this might be it.
Yeah.
But they expect a lot of people from California because it's that east-west thing. And the Californians can drive and bring plenty of models. So, we'll cross our fingers. Hopefully they all have a good time.
Yeah, we were all set, a few of us, to go too, but with the border shut, we can't. So
they do have a mask mandate, which is probably something you might have expected anyway. But for a while there, they were not going to need masks.
Well, it's going to be interesting to talk about the Nats. How many models might they get, given that I think you guys are all shut to international travel? Is that correct? I think.
Right, and I think, Harvey, you might have heard on the call with Albany the other night that Edward's not coming.
Right.
And the gentleman from Japan that always comes and makes a big splash.
Right.
He's not coming. So
we'll see. Now let's hope that Omaha right? We'll be at Omaha, which is the year next. I'll be going. Are you going, Mark, next year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's going to be a lot of fun. You know, we have, if you come from our direction, maybe a little bit of a detour for you, but you've got the Dayton U.S. Air Force Museum, and then on the way out there, you have the Strategic Air Command Museum, and I'm sure the Omaha people, they've run a lot of these nationals, and they'll be very welcoming to our friends north of the border.
Absolutely. I went to their Omaha show a couple of years ago. You might think there's not a lot in Omaha, but they've got some real cool museums downtown. They got a renovated, kind of like equivalent to our Union train station that's immaculately renovated to the 30s. So, yeah, hopefully we can see you guys out there in 2022. But welcome, Mark, and thanks for joining us. Great.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sure. Well, I'm also going to start picking on people. Dennis, I see you, Dennis. Unmute yourself. Dennis is first meeting here. And why don't you say a few words about yourself, Dennis? We bumped into you over at the hobby shop in Durham. Great Hobbies, right? Is that?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself and your first call on this?
Alrighty. First of all, can you guys hear me well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, so my name is Dennis Martin. It's nice to meet you guys. I've been, I do mostly 1 to 35th scale armor. I do the odd 32nd scale plane, the odd 24th scale car. I've been modeling kind of like semi-seriously, where like I'm actually putting a bit of effort into the stuff I do for about 2 years now, ever since COVID hit. Yeah, definitely I've been watching a lot of the videos that IPMS makes. I've been watching all the meetings. You guys definitely have a lot of talent, and I'm really excited to be here.
Great, great, Dennis. All right, so we're going to start. I think Eric is still hasn't joined us yet, so the perfect time, and we'll do the show and tell later, except, you know, we got to see some of Derek's work, but we'll do the show and tell a little bit later. So I'm going to go right into the show and, the seminar on weathering. It's probably going to take like 15, 20 minutes. You guys can feel free to ask questions. As I said before to the Airbuff guys, I don't do a presentation the same twice, and I added some slides. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about weathering because there's so many new techniques out there. So let me share the screen and we'll go right into it. Everybody see that? Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about weathering, and let's see if I can. There we go. So a couple of things that we'll go right into it. A bit of philosophy on weathering. I'm going to talk about a model and its operational environment and some things you need to think about when you're doing a model for desert versus, you know, snow or jungle. I'm going to give some examples of photos that I think are really cool that give you an idea on how things weathered. And then I'm going to go through these 4 checklists: surface texturing, fading and wear, chipping, dust, mud, grime, grease, oil, engine oil, that type of stuff, and some of the latest products and weathering that I kind of like. Okay, so let's start with this, and I'm going to cover all aspects of modeling. So when you want to weather something, you got to decide: do you want to do factory fresh, like this engine on the left, or do you really want to wear it out, like the one on the right? I prefer weathering because I think it just adds that extra dimension of modeling. And my philosophy is really simple. The longer you keep an eye on an audience on your model, the longer they look at it, the more successful you are. So your model should be telling a story. Part of that story is weathering. So I would really encourage you guys to start getting weathering. And for those of you that are veterans here, you know, just use this as a checklist and jump right in. Otherwise, don't be too intimidated by weathering. Just get right into it. Okay. So if you do weathering, there are 4 phases: research, and David was talking about this earlier with this Corsair. Like, as soon as you start building it, what do you want to do with it? Age, wear, how do you want to start thinking about that? And you should do that before you even start sanding. There's the build phase, there's the paint phase, and then finally there's the weathering phase. Okay, so look at photos. There's old black and white photos. There's old color ones. Be careful of modern digitized colorization. And of course, there's current color photos. These are the best. In fact, every time I'm driving on the road, I look at cement trucks. I look at cars and how they weather. I'm still looking in front of me, but be aware of your surroundings. And if you're bored on the highway, just look at how cars weather. It's really interesting. I was behind a cement truck the other day, and the thing was coated with cement all over, and you couldn't even read the license plate, but it weathered a certain way still, right? They had layers of dirt on the underside, and the caked cement was only on certain portions of the vehicle. So start studying those things. Let's take a look at, for example, the first set of photos are black and white photos. These are the most of what you're going to get for old subjects. This one is a U.S. submarine, which clearly shows the effects of weathering on this boat. This boat was actually black, pure black. Even the deck was black. I think it was called Measure 13. You can clearly see the weathering on the deck. You don't even need a colorization to tell you that's wear, probably right into the wood. And of course, you've got the primer showing through. For you experts on U.S. subs, the theory is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this pure black wore away to the gray primer underneath. That's basically why you see this lighter gray here. But you can see the streaking. Study these photos. It'll give you an idea of what how they weathered. This is the cruiser Aoba, Japanese heavy cruiser in Kyoto, Japan at the end of the war. It's a colorized photo, and you can see how the linoleum deck is weathered. It was once red-brown. You can see rust effects, streaking effects, discoloration of the grays. These are the things you need to pay attention when you're weathering a model. And we can talk about this later. In fact, Mark, you remember we were talking about FS colors on the last call, and there was a discussion about should we write a book about using FS color chips? And we kind of landed on a discussion with the New York guys that maybe it's a guide that you're not using FS chips like they used to anymore, because you look at, there isn't an FS chip, it's a range. So study these photos carefully. Here's another duotene. What is that, a 520, I think. And although the image is blurred, look at the weathering on this thing. It's just eaten away. There's camouflage here. There's light. The gray even up here is slightly different than the gray here. It's if you do this right, you'll have a lot of people staring at it. Another photo is Corsairs. Look at the walkway here where the crew climbs on board. It's all worn away. You've got some fading of the paint here. It's a little bit different in some areas compared to the wings. Then of course you've got the this stuff that's eaten away right into the natural metal. You know, you can do a Corsair one color, but once you start thinking about doing it this way, you're going to get a lot of people looking at this with a lot of interest. And even F1 cars. This is a Ferrari 512, and it's original picture from the 60s. And these were pure white exhaust, but look, they're discolored. You've got the engine here that is not pure silver. There's a lot of stuff happening here. Oil, caked up grease. So study your photos, right?
Harvey.
Yeah.
Harv, go back to those British Corsairs.
Okay, hold on.
One more.
Yeah.
Check out the weathering on the rondelles.
Yes.
I mean that's probably another generational thing where maybe decal manufacturers are going to start issuing weathered markings.
Well, one company has, you guys probably know it. They do the 30-second stuff for you know the World War I. Was it Aviatic? I can't remember.
Yeah.
They're fabulous. They got this fabric technique. Garfield brought it out when we had our coffee. And you know, did he weather it? Well, he did, but it looks like fabric, and that's where I think you're getting at, right? Yeah.
It's the leather. It's the linen texture.
Yes, right. Right.
Texture, and they also have slightly. You can also pick like faded colors as well.
Thanks again. What's the company again?
Aviatic.
Yeah, that's right. They're beautiful. If you look at them, it makes a huge difference. So I think you're right, Vince. That next is the roundels. I mean, look at especially this guy.
And Harv, if you're using masks, you can actually control that a lot more yourself too, right? Oh
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I really want to do this guy here one day. Like one day I'm going to do this guy. That's going to be cool. All right. So here's a real Greek Corsair. Now,
PA7.
I've been told that these were like that because they were being pressed out of service. They were getting rid of them. So why would they keep them like this? But there you go. That's cool. Like there's a palette right there. Even the browns are different colors. The greens are different colors. There's no one FS color here, right? Another one of these.
Harvey, just quick, what do you figure's going on? Like the panel lines, it's almost like if you didn't think this, if someone presented this at a show, you'd write them off and say, that's insane. That's not the way the prototype does things. But if you look at it, it's almost like all the panel lines have been highlighted.
Yeah.
Everything is faded. What do you figure's going on? Why,
guys? Any comments? What do you think? I don't really have an answer to this, but anybody have thoughts on why these? Is it weatherproof? I have no idea.
Do you think maybe where the panel lines are, that's the original color, and the other part of it's faded? Maybe
could be. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Maybe it's
Or
a bit
could
too wet,
be,
so it
could
didn't
be
fade as much.
leaking olive oil.
What?
This okay, these planes, because there's basically a whole bunch of them somewhere in Greece, and this was in a one of the Facebook groups, a big discussion about hey, look at this is real reality, this is real, and you can do this anyway. The understanding that sorry that I'm stumbling for words, not enough sleep, but they were operating over the sea.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of salt air damage to them, and they were because of that, they were also maintained and oiled within an inch of their life. So there was a lot of grease that was put on them, or some kind of lubricant or whatever, something to keep the panels sealed as well.
Yeah, right.
That
makes sense.
Yeah, over the years, and as Harvey was saying, these actually, I think at this point are decommissioned.
Yeah,
and the pilots are in there just to drive them around. They weren't actually even taking off because I don't think the planes are even capable of flight at this point.
Yeah.
So, or they may be, but they may not be landing. So,
what you're saying is grease for grease.
Yes, there you go.
Watch the IPMS Greece guys watching this thing. Yeah. Okay, a bunch of Canadians commenting on the Greek Air Force. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense with the lubricants on the panels. But there it is, guys. And if you're going to do these, by the way, I forgot to mention, if you're going to do this at a show, put the photo there with the model.
Yeah, so they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I was on the web this morning because all I do is surf for model shit, right? Oop, I can't say that word. We're being recorded. Model shite. And there was an Albatross D3 that clearly had the dihedral and the angle of the wheels wrong. It was just off. And apparently it landed hard and it was sitting on the runway like that. If you're going to do that, show the photo, right? Always show the photo. Ship model's the same. Right? This is a new photo of a sailing ship, and you can see all the salt stains and water from the deck. Right? There you go.
That's a steamship.
Steamship. Oh, there you go. Do you know what? I'll bet you even know which one it is, Jonathan.
It is. It's HMS Warrior.
Oh, my God, you're good. I thought it was Yamato. I thought it was Yamato, but...
You're right.
Okay, yeah. So the operational environment, desert, settings were dusty, lighter colors, prone to a lot of fading. Jungle settings, a lot of rain marks, earth tones, wet effects, fading as well. Winter tend to do more like darker colors and mud and really neutral colors to give a cold effect. In fact, you can use blues and dark grays as well. Water weathering for ships, salt staining. I just recently did a submarine, the S-44, where I weathered the heck out of it. I did not use one earth tone, not one. I used blues and dark greens, and of course that would look at the chipping effect that you'd have on that submarine. So always think about an operational environment. Okay, here's a couple examples of some of the models I've done over the years. This is a desert scheme. This is this is a 1/16 Panzer III by some RC company. I just needed to get that scale out of my brain. So I bought the RC kit and I weathered it and added a bunch of stuff. But you can see where, you know, you've got a lot of dust. These are all dry powders. So when you're doing desert, a lot of dry powders. Keep things very light. There's the typical watermarks and stains from you know, oil and stuff like that. Just keep it light. This one is a 0 and 72nd scale that was serving with the Japanese Navy in Buna in Southwest Pacific, and from photos they got beat up. This is not a 0 that would have seen action at Pearl Harbor or even Midway. These things got beat up. So that gives you an idea that when you start adding mud and stuff, it's going to look vastly different. This is a Polycarpov PO2 and 72nd scale. Again, a winter scheme, right? Everything looks kind of like dead. Everything looks neutral. This is a whitewash over the previous camouflage. Everything's very muted here, and that's the effect that I wanted. It gives it like it's in a cold environment. Sea weathering. This is a Type 2B U-boat that I did 10 years ago now. Time flies. Where it's hard to tell in the photo. There's a lot of greens here. There's a ton of greens from I guess the, you know, seaweed and gunk, and again, no earth tones on. I don't use earth tones or browns on ships. So surface texturing. First thing, make sure that you have some idea that some textures on things like cast hulls and turrets, you can apply texturing. You can use, for example, Mr. Surfacer 500. There's a whole bunch. Mud should have a texture to it. And if you look at these two wheels on my Sahariana, it's hard to tell, but there is a texture to it. It's not just color you want, it's surface texturing. Give it a little bit of 3D effect. Here's an example of some texturing on a T-35 turret. You can see that's Mr. Surfacer 500, just stippled on. Let it dry in the bottle a bit and just stipple it on. It gives it an added exaggerated effect to armor texturing. Some more texturing on this 72nd Finnish Stug. And this is cement. These are cement armor. And these little tiny dents in the, this is actually resin. Were done by these dental drill bits. If there's any tip, guys, go to your dentist and ask for used. My dentist sterilizes them for me. These tiny little dental drill bits are fabulous for modeling. They throw them out anyways, and my dentist just gives me a ton of them after she sterilizes them. So talk to your dentist and ask for dental drill bits. They will help with this 72nd. They'll help with all these little inundations and stuff like that. Muffler texturing, another area where you'd have to apply texture. This is a Chiha, and not only are the colors there, but you can mix Tamiya paints with things like some of their resin textured stuff. A lot of that stuff will give it a bit of bite to it. Even plaster of Paris, you can add that right to Tamiya paint and give it a bit of texture. And you can kind of see it's a bit mucked up. This one actually was used with weathering pencils, and we'll talk a bit about that later. So checklist number 2, fading and weathering. Take a look at this Hellcat. And again, black and white photo. Look at the wear on the wings. Right? Look at the Vince, you made a comment about. There's another one where the markings of the U.S. here. Look at the top of it's worn away, right? I mean, if you're able to do all that on a model, I think it just makes it way more interesting. So if you got any questions or comments, feel free to chime in. I do a bit of everything. This is 72nd. Believe it or not, I'm a big Braille guy. I love 72nd armor. This is a Matchbox Lrdg Chevy. And again, typical washes and dry brushing, just like the old days. In small scale, it works. You don't have to do too much with a lot of the weathering, in my humble opinion, in 72nd. This one's merely got a wash and a bit of dry brushing and a bit of dry powders. That's it. You don't need a lot in small scale. This is another one where we're talking a bit now about pre and post shading. That's another discussion, guys, we can have a whole meeting about. And this is getting the solid panel lines going on this Oscar. Key 43 Oscar. These are used with MIG pigment powders. So what you do is you paint the surface in various colors and tones of that brown, and then you use the pigment powders after. You can even use them dry, and you can accentuate the panels in different colors. It just adds more interest to a model. This is a late war kamikaze version, and they were seeing these types of brown finishes. The modulation techniques, what you saw on the previous one, actually, let me just go back. So this is called, this one's called post shading. So you do all the shading after, okay? This one is kind of like pre-shading, where you do the first before you apply your color. And this one lets the top colors are very lightly applied, letting the other ones show through. So this is what we call post shading. Okay, this was done on my Hinkel 111. Different effect, but you have a choice. With pre-shading, just a note on that, with post shading like this, it's very easy to control. With this pre-shading, it's very easy to lose all that. So you really got to apply these colors very light, or you'll just destroy all of this hard work. So just keep that in mind, that you have to over accentuate if you're doing any type of pre-shading techniques. Modulation, everyone I think has begun to hear about this whole thing called black basing. It's where you spray the model. It's kind of like what you saw in the last two slides, but instead of doing panel lines, you're doing the surface. You're not going into the panel lines, and you're using those splatter masks. This one is a Panzer III. That's this one here. Pure. This one's going in fine scale. I still got to write the article up. It's all black, and then you do the splatter masks, and then you lightly apply the camouflage colors to get some tonal variation in your camouflage. Okay.
Harvey,
yeah.
Harvey, just a quick thing with the black basing. One of the newer things that they're doing with black basing in Japan, or actually for the last few years, Max Watanabe, he has been actually starting to not just do a say white on black, but he's doing a whole bunch of different colors to give sort of different wears to the areas to give it even more modulation, as it were. But he'll use even primary colors. He'll go red, yellow, greenish, and whatever, and cover it up with a light gray or even whitish, off white or whatever for a plane and whatnot. So
that's
it's
a good point. Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. You know what? I should have added one of those. I'm working on an M3 Lee, which is going for a book, so I can't show a lot of photos of it because that's the agreement I have with them. But the way I did the tracks on that, Matt, was exactly what you said. Think of this, guys. Try this. So it's a spare track on my tank. I spray it, whatever, an earth color, like to me a flat earth, and then I go at it manually with a brush with pure bright colors, like Matt said. You're talking pure yellows, pure blues, pure greens, reds, oranges. It looks horrible. But then what you do is you mute it down with filters. And if you do it right, what you end up with is very subtle variations in the track color that ultimately look like there's a bit of rust, there's a bit of dirt. It's quite a nice effect. But the only danger there is if you're doing it, you tend to get over confidence, and it's showing too much through, and then you do too much and you lose it. But very much what Matt said, start experimenting with this black basing. It's really a neat technique.
Harvey.
Yeah.
For those who may or may not have seen a splatter mask, have you got one that you can hold up to the screen to show? Or
I don't. It's in my workroom. Meg makes one. I mean, right? They're
okay.
They're pretty common now. They just look like random holes, like in a sieve.
Yeah, they're typically laser cut, right?
Yeah. Yep. And if anybody can go get one, and then they can interrupt me later. Post shading again. This is a Fearman Tiger with. It looks like it's white, but it's actually light gray. And it just gives you more control with post shading. Post shading is a lot easier to do than pre shading, I think. Another layering technique is the application of oil paints. This is a 72nd KV85 where I didn't use an airbrush. It's all it's all Winsor Newton oils, kind of like the way you'd paint figures. So instead of airbrushing the thing, you build up your layers of paint using oil paints, just like you would a figure. It takes a little bit longer. This one's 72nd scale. It would, I don't know if I'd do it in 35th, but it goes to show you that you can use many different mediums for weathering tanks.
If you want, I got a splatter mask here for you.
Oh, who's got one?
I got one.
Oh, great, John. You see it? Everyone see it?
Yeah,
Right?
same here.
Great, thanks, John. Yeah, and when you use those things, you just use them over and over and just clean them. They're great. And you can experiment by spraying close to the surface, far away from the surface, so on. But again, when you do that, make sure that you don't kill that effect with an overabundance of filters and stuff moving forward in your weathering technique. Glazes, often we call filters, are another way. So this is the deck of an old Mutsu I did, Nagato, sorry. And I basically took an airbrush and just kind of airbrushed it on to mute the colors. That's another easy way of doing it. You could do a wash, but sometimes just with having that much variation, it's easier to just mute the colors with a light coats of an airbrush. Same effect here on the bottom of a Vickers gun bus in 72nd scale. You can faintly see the Union Jack, right? That was just simply white, sprayed, diluted over an original decal, and then the roundel was put on top. So it just gives you that 3D effect. Chipping, everyone loves to chip. And look at this. This is Jonathan. What is that? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's a U.S. submarine, 1942 Nautilus, I think it is. Look at the chipping, right? Look at it all. And by the way, for you guys, those are Marines on there. They just came back from the Makan raid, Japanese Makan raid, and pure black. And look at the chips of light gray showing through. Again, picture that Type 2 U-boat flaked, and effects can be done with pencils and with a paintbrush. You've seen probably Martin Kovacs on the Night Stalker. He likes to paint them on. I still find the old Prismacolor still better for chipping, because I find that the MIG weathering pencils are a bit too soft for chipping, and I just use Prismacolor pencils for the chipping on this model. Oh, heaven forbid, this is a gun. This is one of those LS 1:1 scale guns. So I painted this thing silver with a gunmetal top coat, and then I buffed it with thinner, wet. Like I applied thinner on it and I buffed it so you could see the silver showing through. The point of this is that you can experiment and you can use many different effects. And this is like a scrubbing effect that you can use to remove paint. You can experiment, but I find that what's that stuff called? Green stuff? That cleaning fluid that's environmentally friendly. What's it called? Green stuff?
Green slime.
Simply green.
Simple green.
Simple green. Yeah. Experiment with it, because it's kind of acts like a hairspray technique. You put it on and you can do subtle techniques of removing paint. At least I found it kind of works for me, but always experiment on something that's not valuable for you. Kind of like one of your wife's memorabilia that you don't care about. Just kind of like try it on her stuff before you try it on yours. Okay.
Harvey,
Yes.
if you go back to that previous photo.
Yep. This one?
Yeah. One of the other things that works really well in that respect is using one of those fiberglass etching pens and just physically wearing stuff down.
A fiber? Yes. Yeah. Do you sell? Where do you get those, Glenn?
You can get them in any hobby shop. AK makes them.
I have not used it. You like them, huh?
Oh, they're fabulous. They're great for spot sanding, but also for physical wearing through layers of paint, and they're very easy to control how much you take off.
Do you have one at your bench there? Not to put you on the spot. If you do, you do. You don't, you don't. Well, Glenn, when you do, just if you have, just show it later.
Yeah.
How big is the nib on those? Like, what's the size that's doing this?
It's about
pencil.
it's about an eighth of an inch. It's about 1/8 of an inch, but my friend showed me one the other day. It looks like a mechanical pencil with a 0.5 millimeter lead, and it was actually an etching stick.
So I don't know if you guys can see me, but I actually picked one up recently from oh god, it's in Mississauga. It's actually a whole bunch of places. The Great Hobby or something like that.
Great
It's
Hobbies.
a chain.
Hobbies, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just opened it today actually. There's a whole bunch from China that comes in various diameters. This one came with I think 0.5 and 0.3 or something like that mil. But it's kind of strange because it's not. I expected a round lead, whatever you want to call it. But it's actually kind of point.
Sugan's got one too. So you scrub it, is that right, Glenn?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
you physically wear stuff.
And really, where it comes in handy, where I think its original purpose was for soldering, when you want to clean a spot, and then flux and then solder. But the only thing about those fiberglass brushes is be really careful, because those what's the word I'm looking for here? The fibers themselves are very brittle and break down quickly and can get into eyes and stuff. So
and
you
into
just,
skin.
just,
So you
just
have
throw
to
heads up. You can also get the same brush in brass.
Yeah. But it's much harsher.
Yes. So a lighter touch.
Is that
Speaking
right?
of harsher, speaking of harsher, one thing I even tried when I was working on an exhaust and I wanted to get that chipping effect was actually use just a normal file. Like a normal file you might just get at a hobby store. If you use that extremely gently, you can actually achieve a pretty interesting like bead up effect on it. But you have to go really light with it, because otherwise you're just gonna go right to the primer.
Right. Good stuff. And I suppose you can use these chipping tools, when you're doing your hairspray technique too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, which is
the
next slide. So hairspray, everyone knows what hairspray technique is, right? Yeah. So the only thing I can add to this is on the left is a key 21 that's been distressed with hairspray. On the right is the same thing, 72nd Tamiya 20. Now, the only thing that I can offer that maybe you guys would find useful is I don't decant the stuff. These are 72nd models. I sprayed the hairspray right out of the can. It works for me. Now, some say some brands are better than others. I use Tresemme Silk Gloss or something. I get it at Shoppers Drug Mart. And I use it right out of the can. I don't even bother decanting it. And then when I apply the paint over it, I usually thin the paint. Like I like Tamiya. You thin the paint with a retarder. That's the only thing you thin it with. Don't even thin it with the thinner. That being said, it takes a little longer for the paint to dry, gives you more time to work it. Sorry, somebody say something? No? But if you do that, you're going to get a lot of removal of the paint if you use a lot of layers of the hairspray. So always experiment.
And one suggestion, if you've never used hairspray itself, find the men's brand. This is why Tresemme is really good, because they do have a men's thing, so you don't basically your place doesn't stink up with like perfume, because almost all hairsprays for women are full of perfume. So
that's true. Tresemme
men's hold number 3, or because it's 5 level, and 3 is the ideal, at least according to Mike Rinaldi. So that's
is that right? Okay.
Yeah, Mike Rinaldi uses the men's hold number 3 or whatever, the third strength.
And he doesn't decant it either. He just
right on the bottle. I've experimented decanting it. It's just, to me, it's just an added unnecessary step, really. And sometimes when you decant it, you're spraying it, it's not enough, and it takes a lot harder to get the paint off, right? So always experiment. We're going to talk about dust, mud, grime, and grease. This is probably the biggest part of any modeling. Look at this chaffee. Look at the mud on this thing. But when you look carefully, it's not just mud. There's a lot of stuff happening with it. And we'll go over some of the rules of mud. Okay. Oops. How did that get there? This is
Or
just to
that's
illustrate
PG.
that you guys are paying attention. But more important, always wash your models with water before you start. That's the reason why the slide here. Don't forget about the girl. Just pay attention to the water.
And not a lot of weathering there.
No, there's not, Derek. No, there's not a lot of weathering. That's basically bare. No, it's not bare metal. It's
Yeah,
bare.
that's factory fresh.
Just call it a fresh new model.
There you go. Fresh new model look. All right, dust using pigment powders. Now, you guys have always had use pigment powder. You can use them dry, you can use them wet, you can mix them. There's many different ways. I'm not going to cover them all. Some really good YouTube out there. Night Stalker's got some good stuff. Panzer 36. But when you're doing the dust using pigment powders, this one here again is all dry stuff around the bottom. When you're done, make sure it goes on a flat coat. This is an Italian Sahariana in 135th I did a while ago. Okay, now when you're doing mud and dirt and stuff, I find mud is the hardest thing for me to do because it's got to be interesting. And if you're going to do mud, I usually have a cardinal rule where I use at least 3 different colors of mud, right? Something dark, something light, something in the middle. Don't use one because it dies. And this one, you can see it's kind of hard to tell in the photo, but there's like darker mud here, build up there, adding leaves and stuff like that. Mud needs to be taken care of just like the camouflage. Don't just throw one coat on. It looks too boring. This is another Panther in 35. Oh, by the way, that Panther is a Tamiya 1/16 Panther. It's quite bigger. So I had to do effects that are a little bit more subtler. This one is a 35th Panther, and this one's muddier. But with the mud, you see, I still like to have the base color show through. That's just what I like. I don't like to cover the whole thing in mud. It's too heavy for my tastes. This is a new project I'm working on. It's I'm not supposed to show this to you guys, but it's only the bottom part of my Lee. I'm still working on it, but this gives you an idea of the amount of distress and coloring, dark mud splatters. There's the oil leaks and fuel leaks going on. There's see this? That's hairspray. That is basically you paint the olive drab tank, and then you go over the hairspray technique along the whole bottom. You can see it in the wheels too. This is a mix of Panzer Gray and I think Tamiya Buff. And go at it with the hairspray. Remove like 90% of it, and it gives you this dry cake. And then you go over it with the powders.
Harvey?
Yeah.
What is that spike hanging down?
Oh, it's basically a British entrenching tool.
Okay, thank you.
This is a British Lee that was in
right,
Mandalay.
Bourbon.
To clean the mud off the tracks.
Yeah, exactly. And all the gunk after they roll over the Japanese. Sorry, that's just a bad joke. Which they did, by the way. No kidding. They used these tanks to very good effect against Japanese infantry. Oil and grease stains. Here's a tip. You can buy the MiG and the AK oils, and they look like dark browns, but I find that none of them give you that. Sometimes you've got these light little colorful things going on in gasoline, right? You see bits of orange and yellow. I like to take Tamiya clear orange, thin it, around thinner, and mix it with like an earth brown. Have a little bit more of the clear orange in there and go over it, and the effect you'll get is really nice. It gives you this kind of like this little essence of gasoline coloration going on, right? So that's
Harvey.
Yeah.
When you're doing a model, do you practice on another model to get the technique and the mixing ratios and everything right?
Yeah, I do. But mostly I practice on, like for tanks, I practice on the underside of the hull, right? Okay. So then you've got the same color of the model. That's where I start with. But you're absolutely right, Mark. All the years that I've been building models, maybe that's a good segue. I find that not every model is weathered the same way. And if you try a great weathering product, let's say it's one of those enamel airfield dust, it may look great on this model. It may look like crap on an olive drab. So always experiment, Mark. Like, that's a good point. That's a good question. Always experiment on the underside of the hull or on a completely different model using the same base color, because I'll tell you, especially those enamels. I'm really more of an oil guy. I don't really like those MIG enamels. They're very hard to mix and master. But if you do use them, experiment for sure before you apply them. The only thing that you can apply without thinking is things like washes, dry brush. That's easy. But as soon as you start thinking about filters and, start experimenting. Oil and fuel streaks are achieved best with oils. That's my opinion. I just can't get this effect using enamels. These are using those MIG oil brushers, those thin pens. And this one's, I think, Starship Filth. This is on a 72nd Japanese transport. And just put them on, let them dry for like, 5 minutes, and then start streaking them with a wet, slightly damp brush, and you get the streaked effect. Notice the mud here. This is dry powder. You put the dry powder on the model, and then you put the thinner, touch the thinner to it, and it gives you that kind of like splattered effect. It's a nice little subtle effect. Same thing done here. But these splatters were done with MIG enamels, just kind of flicking the brush, getting that little oily effect there. That's the bottom of a Henkel 111. So some of the latest products I like. I love these pencils, guys. These pencils are totally awesome. You can use them for blending, use them for mostly for post shading. Make sure, however, they are used on a completely flat surface. They will not work on a glossy surface. They will not work on a semi-gloss surface. The only thing that I don't like about them, as I said before, this chipping, I'm not too fond of it. I still like the Prismacolor because I find they're a bit too soft, but that's an opinion. But these, sorry, somebody have a question? No, we're good?
Harvey?
Yeah.
Are those pencils, are they just watercolor?
No, they are water, but they've got this consistency, like they act like oils. You can apply them right from the pencil, but what I do is I dip them in water, and you touch them to the model and you blend. The great thing with the pencils is if you make a mistake, you just wipe them with water and you're back at it. If you're using those MIG enamel ones, that are enamel based, whether it's a filter or like an airfield dust or what do they have, a Russian earth, there you got to, you get them on, you wait about maybe 2 minutes, and then you start blending. After 5 minutes, you can't remove them. So you better know what you're doing with those enamels. Oils, you're a lot more flexible. The enamels have their place, but I prefer oils. Shaders, these I love these. These I love them to death. These are kind of like you're spraying a filter. You don't have to thin them. You don't even have to shake the bottle. You just put them right in your airbrush. They have all these colors which you can mix. This light green is what I used on the top of this Lee. It's hard to tell, but once you use that light green, it just really pops the highlights. And it's pretty. And again, it's pretty easy to use. It's water based. I love these things. You can use them in the recessed areas or highlights. They don't have a lot of color range, but I just find the consistency of these products are really good. So conclusion, don't be afraid to experiment. Just build and have fun. And that's it. Any questions? Good?
Thanks, Harvey.
Clear as mud. Get that joke? Clear as mud.
This is Ming. Just a very simple question.
Yeah.
What kind of varnish you use to protect the paint before doing the weathering, washing, and all that, if at all?
Very good question. Yeah, okay, now we're on that question. We call those things barriers. I call them barriers, right? So if you weather a model, let's say you spray a model with Tamiya acrylics, and then, as I said, you like oils. First of all, it depends what technique you're using with what product. So what I typically do is the first thing I do is a wash. So if I have, let's say if I have an acrylic base, I need a barrier, a protective varnish coat. I tend to use like Model Master Acryl, although I think they're no longer produced. Tamiya makes some as well now, and that's an acrylic layer that will just simply protect your underneath coat much more better. And then you go at it with oils. If you've done the oil wash and you want to go at it with more enamels like filters and things, guess what? You need another barrier coat, and you need a barrier coat of acrylics, so you don't destroy the underlying enamel. So it does get confusing. The cardinal rule is simple. Apply a barrier to a model when you're weathering it. If you're using two products that are of the same type of chemical, right? You might have put a enamel filter on to change the color. If you put another enamel wash over that enamel filter without a barrier, guess what? You're going to totally wreck the filter. You need an acrylic varnish barrier between the enamel filter and the enamel wash, if you follow, right?
Yeah. So I heard somewhere that, I mean, let's say, for example, I have an acrylic base color.
Yeah.
And I want to do a wash with another type of medium like enamel oil. Then the varnish cannot be acrylic.
That's correct. That's correct. If you've got an acrylic model and you want to do a quick oil wash, you don't need a barrier because they're already different. They're already different.
Oh, I see.
Chemicals,
I see.
right? But if you were doing, let's say you did an acrylic a model, and then you decided to use, because sometimes they have washes that are water based. You need a barrier, and that barrier then has to be an enamel barrier, right?
Oh, I see.
Right?
Okay.
Because you're protecting it. Otherwise, it'll strip it off. Is that confusing or what?
So as an effective barrier, in the sense that the effective barrier is a different material than the base coat. The coat
to protect
underneath.
it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You can't apply the same chemical over another because you'll just wreck it. You need a barrier to protect your previous weathering layer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Your barrier layer.
Done that.
Your barrier layer is different than what the layer you want to work on is.
Yeah. Right, John. Sorry, Harvey. You have a question?
Yeah. Are you going to go over the weathering pencils procedures that you follow, or?
I can go over them now. Number one, you can use them just dry, just like that. The better way is what you do is you dip the pencil in water and let it sit for like a couple of seconds, and then take that pencil and apply that. It almost looks like, comes out like the consistency of a thick. It's not like a typical water wash. It's a little bit thicker. That's why I love them. They have a thicker consistency. Apply that in like dot effect to the model that you're after, and then you can blend them with a dry brush. That's a really good way to use the pencils. To give you an example, the muffler that I did on the Chiha, you have various colored rust pencils. Just start with the light one, go to the dark one, go to the light one. Let the previous layer dry a bit, and you'll end up with a nice effect. If you don't like it, you just put water on it and you're done with. But you can use them wet, you can use them dry. The only disadvantage of the pencils is they don't sharpen well. If you put them in a pencil sharpener, they tend to break. Best way is to take an X-Acto blade or something and just kind of like cut it yourself manually, because you'll find if you put it in a pencil sharpener, they tend to break, and that's not that useful. But you can take slivers of the pencils and put them in water too, and then use that water as a mix for your weathering. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you.
Actually, one thing that I've done is take a wet brush and actually brush onto like take pigment off the pencil itself.
Yes.
So I just basically use the pencil like a palette, if it were, but it's kind of makes a weird divots in the graphite or. Yeah.
So a lot of guys say, where do I start? Now, the one thing that you, if I can say that anything here to give some humble advice, don't overdo your weathering. Don't use every technique out there. You don't have to. The hardest thing is knowing when to stop. Because if you apply filters, if you apply washes, you apply dry brushing, you apply, pencils, you apply, oh, I got to use enamels. Oh, there's this oiler. I got to do the dot oil technique. It's too busy. I've seen a lot of, I'm not going to mention, of course, people's names, but they're really great modelers, but then they fall into this trap that they have to use every technique. You don't have to. Then it becomes so busy that you lose the whole effect. It's always better to be subtle. Less is best. So you don't always have to use every technique. Okay? Whatever works. And just that's enough and walk away. Okay?
Actually, Harvey, a question about the pencils, because that's one thing I have no idea about. Have you ever have you ever had to put something on top of them and need to put a barrier between the pencils and above? Like, what do you use as a barrier? How do you treat them? Like, do you treat them as acrylics?
That's a great question. Typically with pencils, I've found that if you're using them to weather, you've got to be careful with a barrier because it just kind of wrecks it. It destroys it, right? Much like if you're using, great question, Matt. If you're using dry powders, like without any thinner, and then you apply a clear coat over it, guess what? It's gone.
Yeah.
So if I were you, I would use pencils only at the last stage of weathering. I wouldn't put a clear coat over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Harvey, is it possible to get a PDF of your presentation?
Absolutely. And if you like, Mark, I mean, I don't want to monopolize you guys in New York, but maybe perhaps sometime in the future I can do it for you guys down there, and I can send you one as well.
Yeah, I was actually right after this going to contact Tim and tell him you're sitting on some really great content here.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I just, don't want to, like, I've been presenting a lot.
Hey, Harvey.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier on what was it? Hairspray.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, does that affect? Is it mainly used for armor modeling, or can you use it? And when would you use it for aircraft modeling?
Well, you saw two of my Japanese aircraft that were the Tony and the Sally. The best time that you can use hairspray technique is, let's say you're doing a Japanese aircraft that's got a lot of squiggles and stuff on it, where the guys walked on the wing route. Use hairspray along the wing route, and that wears away the chemical, right? And it's perfect for aircraft. That's probably where I use hairspray the most, is on a Japanese aircraft where you set, like, if you have an overall colored, I don't know, P-40, it's all green, Pacific. You can also use hairspray to have worn effects on the silver, or you can do like a two-tone green on the P-40, right? And if you do a nice subtle hairspray, say a lighter olive drab, that's okay too, because then you have a nice modulation and interest in the colors. And then you just mute it with filters. There's many ways that you can use it for aircraft. All right, I see Eric is on now. So
okay,
questions before?
Okay, what about yeah, what about because, like, I'm thinking, would it apply if I were ever to use it for helicopters? I don't think so, right? Because they don't really take to that.
Well, it depends on the helicopter. If you're doing like a Huey from Vietnam, why not, right? The dust technique that I showed you on my Lee, you can apply, like, they hit landing zones, right, in Vietnam where they pick up a mud. You could do a hairspray technique.
Yes, I could see right? That would be
on the bottom of a Huey, right? Easy. So, any other final questions?
Right.
Before we can see all your great work. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and you guys can share screens. And if you send stuff to Eric, he'll show that. We'll do the show and tell now. All right, over to you, Eric.
How's the recording?
I'll share my screen here, and hey guys, apologies for joining a bit late tonight. So this week we only got 3 submissions, so We will start. I usually go through the ones who send me photos first, and then switch over to any web pages. This time, Glenn actually sent photos directly instead of links to his
Nice,
Google
Glenn.
pages. So, Glenn, you want to walk us through this? You're working on the new Tamiya Phantom.
Oh, okay. I'll unmute myself here. Yeah, like everybody else and their dog who's an aircraft fan, decided to get a new Phantom kit just because the reviews have been so fantastic. And this is probably the first Phantom I've built as an adult.
That's great.
Built one as a kid, you know, maybe 40 odd years ago. So I held off through the academies, through the Zukimuras and all these. And I'm really glad that I did. Because I can honestly say I am simply blown away with the engineering of this kit. It is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. So within a day, I've already completed the cockpit and painted it and done a little bit of a weathering.
Wow.
And that was finished maybe an hour ago.
Wow.
Nothing fancy.
Oh,
The
yeah.
reason I stay away from manned aircraft usually is because you have to paint it along the way, which I really don't like, but I made the exception for this.
Is that out of the box, Glenn?
That's out of the box.
Nice.
Very nice.
Hey, Glenn, where's the close-in weapon system for this thing?
Well, it's the wrong scale. And it's on the ground being loaded. And not wanting to do the same decal scheme that everybody and their dog is going to be doing, a Sundowners or something like that. I found some decals from a place called Bullseye Aviation, and that was actually the first picture that was up on the screen. And it was an EW bird that has a slightly different fin cap that I got from Flying Leathernecks. Just I don't know what attracted me to this. Stored along the fuselage spine, but it's going to be different than everybody else. I got the fin cap on the way. And yeah, looking forward to doing the metal effects at the back underside near the engines. That should be a lot of fun. But yeah, within a day's worth of modeling, I have a completed cockpit painted.
Oh.
Glenn, sorry, what was the brand of the model?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the brand new Tamiya 1/48 scale F4B.
Oh, okay.
And you can see here I've indicated that's actually a physical join between the front of the fuselage and the main body. All of the main joins are along panel lines, and I use that black liquid cement just to illustrate where it's going to be, but everything it drops into place.
Yeah.
Most of the time you apply the glue from behind. You don't apply it to the surface. And the fit is just, it blows me away. It really does.
Can you go back 2 slides, Eric?
This one?
One more back. Talk about weathering. There you go. Master Glenn at his weathering best. Look at that. See? That's fabulous.
Yeah, there was a couple minutes worth of painting. I did some detail painting and masking on one of the panels for the Rio in the back.
Nice.
And again, the detail is crisp. And the way they've designed the cockpit tub is they use side placards for this one, because the Rio was really boxed in. But they also have horizontal surfaces for when you had a rear seat pilot with flight controls and instrument panels on the left. So they set themselves up for a lot of future editions. It's very plain to see.
Cool.
Who makes the decals again?
It was Bullseye Aviation.
Oh, Bullseye. Okay.
Yeah, I heard of them from one of our club members. We were on our own Zoom meeting, and the subject of this kit came up, and we were just all over the place. Oh, what's going to be good? Who does great decals and this and that? And that's the name that came up. And 10 minutes later, after that conversation, I had this thing on order.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that one's on my short list too.
Yeah.
Get
Hey,
it.
guys, what about foreign versions how much work or whatever is going to be required. Like I'm thinking, I think the Japanese flew Phantoms, but I mean that would be the F4J. But
Yeah,
is
those are the
Tamiya sending-
F4EJs. They're
Yeah,
pretty
is
different. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think that
just
they're going to be
wondering.
coming out with a J next, if I'm not mistaken, simply because that accessory decal sheet with the stencils has stencils for the B and the J. So I really suspect that they're going to come out with a J next, or maybe even a C. I'm not sure.
It would be a real stretch to get a Royal Navy Phantom, right? Because the engines were different, if I recall.
Maybe, but the thing is, in one of the pictures where it shows the covering, it's like the second last photo. It shows the one before that. Yeah, see where the inserts going around the exterior of the engine? That's a replaceable panel. So possibly they're going to have different ones for aircraft that had different engines.
I think the Royal Navy ones were 2 inches wider in the whole.
Yes.
fuselage.
And you might need to expand the bulge more, because to accommodate the Rolls-Royce Spey engines, both the intake and the exhaust were a larger diameter. So that's where the English Phantom is different.
Oh, interesting. Thanks, Derek.
But the whole spine along the main fuselage, it's one drop-in panel.
Yeah, you can see
right
it
up
kind of-
there.
Which follows a panel line again, Glenn, right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's like
exactly. And
they
you
know
can
what
see
they're doing.
the air refueling probe. I did it in the retracted position right there. It just snicks into place. It just drops in, and there's no puttying, there's no filling required.
Wow.
The more you see this thing, the more you appreciate the work that went into it.
I presume they're doing like this is the Navy one. They're going to do an Air Force one. Okay.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Air Force didn't they have rear seat pilots with full controls?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you take a look at the cockpit tub.
Yeah, that's cool.
Shows it.
You can see that, okay, on this one, the Navy had the placards on left and right with electronic gear, but you take those away and boom, you have your instrument panels on your left and the right.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing. Didn't the Iranians, Iraqis fly them? I think.
Yes, they do. Iran has about, I think, 14 of them.
That would be cool.
No?
Probably, eh? What would they be flying now? I don't know.
They have F-14s too.
They still have Tomcats, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Right.
Apparently, most of their stuff is no good because they just haven't been able to keep any parts up from even countries that were willing to sell them parts.
Right. Very cool.
All right, let's switch over. Do we have Paul?
Paul, you're up.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Here we go.
So this is my Kuba wagon. That's the Academy 172nd.
Wow.
Comes with those 3 vehicles. That's the Kuba wagon. So that's the radio is from Orange 3D Miniatures. Open the door, the guns, and some of the other stuff is from Black Dog. And the table, actually, I made the table, but it's actually photo paper. I used some wood grain and then printed it off and glued it on. And the newspaper is also photo paper. I made it thinner by peeling the back off, like the paper off the back, so it would be a bit thinner.
Right. Nice.
So, yeah, and it comes with an engine, actually.
Wow.
All these ones, this vehicle set come with an engine. I scratch built the pump and the jack there in the door there.
Nice.
And
excellent.
The rack.
Yes.
The rack was from Orange 3D Miniatures too.
That thing is what? Only 3 centimeters long or something?
Yeah, it's pretty small. Yeah.
Yes, my God.
Yeah, I added. It came with the headphones and the microphone. I added the wiring.
That's nice.
To it, and the straps and stuff. And I opened the door. I came up pretty close. Still, I haven't got the windshield on yet, and I seem to have lost the steering wheel. But other than that, it's almost done, I'd say.
Nice. That'd be nice.
Very good. All right. Oops. And then last, we have our new friend, Dennis sent along some pictures of
beautiful
his it'll do, I guess, models as he called them. Now, you sent quite a few, Dennis. We try to keep this to about 5 minutes per person. So I don't know if you wanted to pick out some key ones that you wanted to point to us, your favorites. Or...
Yeah, basically it's the first 3 models. So the Tamiya Renault R35. Which
nice.
Is
oh, nice, Dennis.
So that one I actually built. So I work at a hobby store, right? And I work front counter. That was built start to finish at the front counter in like, I think it was maybe 3 days. So right from putting it together to final bits of weathering.
Wow.
Yeah, built out of the box. It was really awesome. No filler or anything like that needed. But I did add a little bit of cast texture to the upper hull. Yeah.
Dennis, did you hand paint that camo?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Yeah.
I could not be bothered to.
Right.
Yeah. I did. I used Tamiya acrylics to hand paint it. I basically used some of their acrylic retarder, and I found that it actually really helped. And I just layered it. Yeah.
Very nice.
What hobby shop do you work at?
It's Great Hobbies. I think it came up prior when we were talking about the pencils. So yeah, we're kind of like a mail order company. We're mostly remote controlled stuff, but then we do a little bit of scale modeling as well. And
So
we've
you
got
guys have a great selection of plastic.
Yeah.
It's mostly online. Like we're again being a mail order company, we have a lot of kits, but they're mostly online. So
you get to goof off. You get to goof off on the job.
You know, Vince, I can say this. Dennis is probably being polite, but I've been out to. He's at the. Was it Oshawa? Is that right?
Yes, I'm in Oshawa. Yeah, we got one in Mississauga and one in
really?
Oshawa.
Yeah, because Dennis builds models. The selection there is pretty good, and we go out there when we hit daily because they got a nice supply of supplies and tools. I just honestly think it's, show support to the locals, but we go out there sometimes to pick up. And Dennis, you should mention you do your own decals, right?
I do. Yeah, I run just a little side gig. I make custom water slide decals. I just have my printer here and I print them out for people. I do airbrush stencils as well. Mostly I focus on Canadian content. But the name of my business is Auto Loader Decals, like auto loader as in the loading mechanism. If you just look up that on Google, it should come up. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a couple of his sets for Canadian Armor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm mostly working on World War II Canadian armor, but I'm hoping to actually at some point start 3D printing Canadian infantry, like modern infantrymen in 35th scale. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah.
Great, good stuff.
Yeah. And then this one here is actually a really interesting model because it's kind of a Canadian built model in a way. So this is the Canuck model. It's 1/72 scale CF 188. So the CF-18s, they have a demo team, and this was the 2015 scheme. It was a Battle of Britain scheme, and I got this at Wheels and Wings. It was down in the basement, and Canuck models, I mean, I'm sure we're all aware of them. They used to make a lot of really great Canadian markings, especially for aircraft. And this is basically a rebox of the Academy kit. It's just the Academy aircraft for the CF-18, but then they include all these really, really great water slides. The kit was really good. It fell together really easily, and yeah, it's definitely. I think they still have some at Wheels and Wings, and it was a steal. It was only like $26. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, and like more obscure Canadian aircraft, this is definitely one I'd recommend.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Dennis, sorry to interrupt you. Are you able, for your decal business, are you able to do white as well?
No. That's the thing I'm working on. I'm actually looking at procuring an ALPS printer. So when I do get that, then I'm sure it'll be on my website. I'm going to make a big deal about that. But yeah, mostly it's stencils for that right now. Yeah, and then I guess there's only one other new-ish model. I think if you, Eric, if you just keep clicking right there, we go. Yeah. So I don't just do fighting machines. I also do some motorcycles as well. So this was Tamiya's 12th scale Kawasaki H2.
Wow.
The Ninja.
12. Yeah. Holy crap. 12.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah, it was a really nice kit.
You like that, Glenn, don't you?
Hell yes.
Yeah. I did another motorcycle 12 scale as well. It was their newest one. It's the Fireblade. Eric, I think if you click it should be
I started one of those. Fabulous kit.
Wow. Oh man, it was fantastic. I love the new Tamiya motorcycles. They almost click together. They're so well engineered, and they've got stuff like pre-drilled brake rotors now. If you like motorcycles or anything like that, I recommend it. Yeah, and that one actually had the metal fork set, so those forks are real metal.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's basically what I do. I do, you know, a little bit of everything. I'm learning with every single build I do, and trying to assimilate new knowledge. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
The metal forks, was that a special edition, or is that the default?
So that is actually aftermarket. So basically, when Tamiya releases their new motorcycles, what they also do is they call it the detail up parts. So you can find it if you go to any hobby store. They should have it. I know we do. Even on Amazon, you can get them. But basically, it comes with metal tubes for the forks. It comes with, I think it comes with. There's various other metal parts. I think some for as well as bolts and screws and such like that. But basically, it's just a few metal parts which are going to be noticeable on the bike that you can use then to add a little bit of extra realism.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah.
Very cool. And that was that's everything that was sent to me this month. It was everybody's been busy enjoying the weather. Right?
Yeah. So now we'll just end up with a free for all, guys. Whatever you want to talk about.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. Speaking of detail up parts, whenever I see those metal nozzles, those vernier nozzles for Bandai, are those Bandai or are they a third party that?
So the metal ones are usually third party. There's actually a bunch of companies that do them. One of the biggest is HIQ. Actually, Panda right now just got a massive shipment of all kinds of HIQ parts. They're not super cheap. Yeah, there's also, oh God, if you go into Hobby Search or the 199.co.jp, you can search for it. It's well, sometimes under thrusters, sometimes under verniers, or sometimes you got to find the Japanese spelling for it. But there's, I think, three or four different companies that make them, and they come in different sizes, different shapes, and mostly they're for sci-fi use. They're not really going to look realistic on modern day vehicles or aircraft or whatever. But but HIQ is probably your easiest one to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, HIQ, they also make a lot of stuff like braided lines with metal wire inside. So if you ever do stuff like cars, or even if you're doing tanks, and they make a lot of stuff for 35th scale. So if you ever want to make hoses or tubing or anything like that, they have really, really good in-scale stuff. So definitely if you like adding that little bit of extra detail in terms of texture, HIQ is a really good company for that.
Cool.
Great. Oh,
actually, speaking. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
No, no worries. The speaking of stuff, new things. So something I tried. I was at Argama Hobbies a little while back, picking up a 5-Star Stories kit, and I think he's the only one currently that's I guess selling or carrying the. Oh boy, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it's OG something, but it's basically it's File Father or Daddy of all files. I don't know. There's different translations for these things. But
so what hobby shop, Matt? What hobby shop?
Argama Hobbies.
Oh, okay.
He's got a pickup location at Finch and Kiel-ish. But he also delivers and all that. These are mostly, it's kind of a neat, because usually you either have sponge or hard plastic. This is hard plastic with a little layer of sponge, and it's actually pretty nifty. I do like them. I got 400, 800, and 2000. And I've actually been using the 2000 a lot to surface prep or to clean up a lot of, on a lot of the Bandai kits, you'll get that the cold sinks and the surface of each part looks almost like looks fairly wavy. And so here the I don't know if that's actually getting, there we go. That's the packaging. it's like OG sorry, but it's file father. I think if you start looking, but Argama has them all. I dig them. They feel like they're going to be long lasting. I usually like using little bits. I like for like say God hand sponges. I usually take them down to something like this. And you know, of course, I use oh God.
Sanding sponge.
Anyway,
Matt, you need to get some.
Yeah, exactly. The super sanding blocks from Goodman. So these sort of come as a nice in between.
So this Argama hobby, I just looked them up. They're on all nets.
Oh, they're on all nets. Do they all walk in?
I don't know if they're open for walk-in at the moment, but he's been around for. He's mostly a Gundam and sort of sci-fi-ish kind of place. He's been open for about 1.5 years, and he was doing just deliveries up until I think about 3 or 4 months ago, and then he just couldn't keep it all at his place, or maybe his wife said, "Get this out of here," and he started up. You know, he's got a little office space. So he was doing pickups only when last I was there, but probably he's open now. Okay. I know he's planning to have a couple of tables there for people to work on stuff, and he wants to sort of set it up as a regular store at some point. Okay. Yeah, looks promising. Let's put it that way.
Steels and Dufferin. Is it Steels and Dufferin?
Okay. Well, we're well served with hobby stores here in Toronto.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to say, our Great Hobbies location in Ottawa, they just moved maybe a 2-minute drive away from our other good hobby store.
Oh, wow. Really?
They moved from the train yards over, I think it was a year. And they
it was
right to the corner of Hunt Club and Maribel.
Right.
It went over like a lead balloon with our established hobby place. But I got to say, their selection of plastic, my God.
Yeah.
And finishing supplies and tools. So it's a one-stop shop. When I'm in the area, I hit up both places.
Huh.
But yeah, Great Hobbies is really up their games for plastic modeling stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is IPMS Toronto, so if any of you guys live kind of close to Argentia Road in Mississauga, we also have, so basically most of our models, like a lot of our, more obscure models, because we carry a lot of manufacturers, they're going to be in our warehouse. And right now you can actually pick things up directly from our warehouse. You save on shipping and all that.
Oh.
So yeah, all of our stores do shipping and pickup, but you can also pick up from our warehouse.
So your warehouse is in Mississauga, Dennis?
It's in Mississauga. So you've got a store at Mississauga, and then literally a 5-minute drive down the road, we have our warehouse.
Which, by the way, guys, if you're out that way, the Credit Valley Railroad stores down the road too.
Yeah, it's Harvey. It's more than a store. It's a warehouse too, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's when they were in Streetsville, Credit Valley had quite a lovely shop.
Yeah.
Then they moved to Argentia. I think it was Argentia.
Yeah, that's right.
And essentially, you walk in there, and it's just goes on.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's great.
And actually, speaking of Mississauga, the Panda has made an announcement that they're going to be opening up a second location.
Get out! Crap!
So, and it's going to be in Mississauga, sort of 427-ish and Burnhamthorpe, I think, because whatever is the first turn off, the first cross street off of the south of the 401.
Hey, Mark, you got to cross the border and come up to Toronto. Like we're really well served with hobby shops.
I was about to say we're making our American cousins down there a little jealous.
We are well served. I mean, with them, with Wheels and Wings, the usual, with Panther, with Sunward now, like we're pretty well served, and we kind of hit them all.
Harvey, Sunward is not that far from either of us. Eh?
No, man. I was there today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never heard of Sunward. Where's that?
Sunward. Oh man, they're over on Castlefield and Dufferin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're on Miranda, Miranda, which is a little side street with and they're an industrial unit there. So
Yeah. Not a lot of kits, but tons of supplies. And
oh my God,
I can say, right, I can say, guys, like, I think our hobby shops are all like they're all pretty well balanced, right? Like, they're in different parts of the city. We go to all of them. They're pretty good. So yeah, you got to visit somewhere. I was just out there today.
and if you're going to Panda in Markham, I mean, George's Trains is literally
Across the street.
Across the street, 30-second drive, right? And what I love is you go to George's and it's got a vibe.
Yeah.
You go to Panda, totally different vibe.
Yeah, you're like in Akihabara with all that Japanese music. Matt, when are they opening in Mississauga?
It's Baldwin hopes it's going to be like 2 weeks or so, maybe even less. But it all depends on, he's getting the place painted, a bit of renovation. So it's whenever the renovation guys are done with it.
Do you know where in Mississauga?
So it's off of the 427, and I think it's Burnhamthorpe the first cross section.
Yeah. Okay.
It's in there, yeah.
South of 401. Somewhere in there.
Nice.
So is he going to try to recreate the same atmosphere with the build room?
Almost. It's not as big a place. There will be some build tables, but there will be no paint room.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
the Markham location is the only one to have a dedicated build room and paint room.
Oh, by the way, I picked up some of that Mr. Hobby Rapid Thinner from the shop. I love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of Mr. Leveling Thinner. Really nice flat finish. So if you guys get a chance, it's the red labeled bottle, right?
And you're using it with Tamiya as well?
Yeah, you can. You can.
Or you're using it with other Mr. Hobby paints.
You can both. You can both. Well, you can apply it over virtually anything, but the flat finish, it's a nice flat finish without any stuff drying in the air and any dusting on the model. It dries really quick, ensuring you are a very flat finish. It's called Rapid Thinner, opposite of Mr. Leveling Thinner.
Yeah, I started mixing that with my Mr. Surfacer 1500 for all my priming.
Yeah.
I decided to mix it with the Rapid Thinner this time and it dries in half the time.
And it's good? You like it?
I like it, yeah. Whereas the Leveling Thinner gives the black more of a satiny finish.
Yeah.
It's a dead flat finish with this Rapid Thinner, but it's dry to the touch in minutes. So I can start adding my other colors, that much sooner.
Nice stuff. Nice, guys. Before any my manners, anybody that's joined us since that's new that wants to introduce themselves, speak up. If not, we'll continue the banter.
Okay, I'm not new, but I'll bring up one little thing.
Sure, John.
Outside the box. We all love the Dremel tools, speedy, not speedy. I picked this up from a nail salon.
Yep.
It's like a nail salon Dremel tool. Benefit has left and right or clockwise, anti-clockwise speed.
Oh.
But the only drawback is your chuck size is like 3/32 as opposed to 1/8.
So close.
But you can go clockwise, variable speed.
That's cool.
So counterclockwise, variable speed.
Where'd you get that, John?
Amazon, $20.
Oh, wow.
And if you want to, if you look at the nail supplies for the nails, these are little ceramic bits.
Those are awesome.
So they're completely ceramic. Clean them out, no problem to them. Small shafted, very fine tips.
Oh wow!
And some of the carbide bits are amazing as well.
Is that a plug-in or battery operated?
No, it's USB.
Oh shit! Okay, great.
Okay. So you plug it in your USB port and you knock yourself out. But the good thing is, I found with having a forward or clockwise or counterclockwise spin.
Nice. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, your dust is controllable and you got better control over it.
That's actually true. Yeah, all the Dremels go one way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even at low speed, this is the lowest speed on my fingertip, and it's nothing.
Oh.
So I
thought about that. Are there any long ago? Dremel, I think, had a variable speed foot control.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Does anybody make one for the plug-in Dremel tools nowadays?
Go
No,
to,
because you need it's not like a standard rheostat. It's more like a sewing machine variable speed.
Yes, exactly.
But you can't reverse the motor though with a Dremel. It's the problem I find.
Yeah.
So Glenn, go to riogrande.com. It's a jeweler supply out of Colorado. Sorry, or is it Arizona? I can't remember now. I think it might be Arizona. Don't blame me if it puts a dent in your pocket, because they have got toys like you would not believe. A router speed control, if you're going to go desktop, will still work. I actually do have a vintage Dremel speed control for the old single speed controls.
Yeah.
So for the single speed Dremels, I do not believe you're supposed to use, and I'm not an electrical engineer, and I probably should have paid attention in university, but I don't think you can put two speed controls in series with each other.
You can't.
You can't. Yeah.
You can't.
No,
Has to
like
be
I have a
available.
variable speed, and I would have to get another single speed Dremel to use, like the rheostat or the foot pedal. I would not put my variable speed one on a rheostat. No way.
So the people who do use the foot, are you familiar with like flex shaft tools like Fordham? Fore. Yeah, okay. So Fordham make the tools that a lot of jewelers use and a lot of professional and a lot of carvers use. So Fordham, if I'm not mistaken, they make a foot control. Now I'm not sure if it's on off or if it's variable speed, but check what Fordham do. Foredom.
Either that, or I'll take my mother's old Singer sewing machine that's built into a table, and I'll cannibalize it for a foot control.
Well, dentists almost exclusively use foot control because they need to be able to actuate when they're working in your mouth. And they clearly need both hands at the same time, so they're constantly going. But those things are air turbines, which 40,000 RPMs, right? So
I looked at all these different variable speed options for Dremel and whatever, and started looking at the price tag. And in the end, for 20 odd bucks on Amazon, Tack Life rotary tool has 3 speeds, and the lowest speed is, once again, you can touch it to your finger, it'll do everything. It's battery operated and basically plugs into USB plug-in to recharge it. It's usually like 30 bucks or so, and then it goes on sale for 22.
Nice.
So you know what? I've done the
and it comes with a whole bunch of little tools and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of inexpensive tools because I've never had good luck with inexpensive. If Glenn, getting back to Glenn, or if anybody who's got a bit of a tool fetish, check out Proxxon. Proxxon.
Yeah.
They're made in Germany, I believe.
I've got you already.
I've got quite a few of the tools.
Proxxon are beautiful.
Are they Proxxon, eh?
Oh,
I feel myself getting poorer as we speak.
Oh yeah. Proxxon will give you a 2-inch chop saw, a 4-inch table saw, all the hand tools and buffing tools you want. But again, it's from Germany. To get the North American 110 bolts, the North American distributors don't really exist. There's a couple of companies in the States who will import once they get enough volume to justify shipments.
Well, some of Micromark's tools are white labeled through Proxxon.
Yeah, they are.
Right? Like the little drill press that they sold. Harvey, you remember that drill press I lent you years ago?
Yeah.
So that drill press is actually Proxxon made for Micromark. But since then they've come out with other drill presses and
right.
If you want, I just looked it up. Amazon.ca, this little tool. Just Google nail polishing tool, $32.
How much, John?
32 Canadian. USB controlled with all the bits if you want.
Cool. Nail polishing tool. Okay.
Just Google. There's like a whole. You can get them in pink, purple, white, whatever color you want. but it's like outside the box of when you think modeling tools, because these are nail salon tools.
Why not?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Jewelers tools.
Jewelers tools, watchmakers tools.
Yes.
You know, one of my best pin vices is a watchmaker's tool. It's a watch pin vise, the smallest one I got. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And if you really
half our tools are watchmakers tools, so
yeah. And if you really want to go nuts, get the catalog from Fine Science Tools. They sell surgical equipment. I mean, you want to pay $300 for a pair of tweezers? Go for it. I mean, it's tool porn, right? You just look at it and you go, "What the?"
Thanks, Vince. You're telling me this on a pay week. Thank you.
The most amazing thing is they make a scalpel, and it's not a steel blade; it's obsidian, which is some sort of stone or something.
Yeah, it is a stone, very hard stone.
Yes, and what
Like
they
glass.
do is it's basically you're going back to our ancestors from thousands of years ago, and they have like a little chip of this obsidian, and apparently it never needs sharpening. It's brittle as all hell, but it can cut like nothing available. Like there's nothing as sharp. Made out of obsidian.
It's sharper than metal.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find that. Fine.
yeah, that's the thing with glass is it can hold an edge on a molecular level. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Until it goes.
But that's the thing. It's super brittle, but at the beginning, it's so sharp, it's scary. Like you don't want to touch it.
A question for Dennis. Since you're into motorcycle models, have you checked out any of the Meng kits, the 1/9 scale?
So I'm going to do a bit of a confession here. So I'm the guy who basically at Great Hobbies Oshawa, I scan all the kits that come in the packages, and I look in every single one. I get a nice inside the box on it. It's a great job if you can get it. So we got the Meng. It was the Kawasaki H2, which is the Carbon Ninja. We got that in 1/9 scale. So you think 1/12 scale is big? Well, 1/9 scale is that much bigger. And that was the pre-colored edition. So they make a 1/9 scale kit that it's just a normal kit, and then they make one where all the parts are pre-painted, right? Because one of the things when you're making a motorcycle is you have to really paint as you go. It's kind of like doing one giant aircraft cockpit, if you can put it in those terms. So we've got the 1/9 scale, and I've got to say those main kits look really good. I'm not sure, having not built one, if they're on like the engineering level of Tamiya, but I definitely venture to say that they probably are. So if you like motorcycles, Meng probably is a good manufacturer to go with.
Yeah, and they just announced their newest one was a BMW 9R9 NINET, which is a cruiser style, and it is. I'm waiting with bated breath for this thing to come in because a friend of mine has one.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. That is one heck of a bike. Look at that. Yeah, I know that their chrome parts are pretty good. I personally prefer the Tamiya chrome, but I think Meng they've done a pretty good job with theirs, and I think it got better with the pre-colored edition of the H2.
Yeah, indeed. I checked one of the boxes for that pre-colored H2 or H2R just to look at the frame. The green metallic frame, and wow, that was quite impressive from a factory made product. Damn impressive.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I think with the motorcycles, it's a pretty fair investment of time, and then you've also got to get all the paints right, because I use lacquer paints to paint mine. I think that's so if you can save all that money getting the pre-colored edition, I mean, it wasn't that much more expensive than just a standard kit.
Yeah, and a lot of the pieces are screwed together with small screws too.
A message for Mark from New York State. Mark, effective tonight at midnight, the borders are open, so come on up.
Actually, they're tonight. It was this morning.
Is it?
Yeah, that's right.
This morning.
And I hear that we can go down apparently August 21st or something like that. Something tentative.
Yeah, something like that, 21st.
Well, thanks very much. But I think the main thing you Canadians are concerned about is like once we go up there, will the U.S. let us back in? Whenever I go to Canada,
We'll
they
keep
say,
you, Mark.
look, do you have enough documentation to get back into your own country?
Right.
You do? Then come on in.
Right.
Mark, you make it seem like if you're stranded in Canada, it's a bad thing.
Well, it's not a bad thing because, you know, but it's a question of the limits on my credit cards. That's
Well, considering there's a 30% advantage,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
can really stretch your money, right?
Right.
Mhm.
You're just
Just
going to
remember, you can get into Canada without a passport. You can't get back to the States without a passport.
right, right. But thanks for the invite.
Anytime, Mark. Either that or we'll meet up in Buffalo, right at the hobby stores out there, right?
Well, I never understood the border because it's a big border. Just find some back road up in upstate New York and I'm there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm going to make it quick because we went to Section 8. I think me and 3-4 other guys. This was before COVID. We're coming back into Canada. It's never a problem going down, right? Never a problem going down in the States. They love us. Coming back, our own custom guys. What do I get? I get, with all due respect, Gates, I get this French Canadian custom guy, right? My French is it's not great, but it's okay. So he looks at me, I'm driving, and he starts the French thing on me. Well, first of all, look at the color of my skin, man. I'm not really great at French. Okay. So that's problem. What happens is the guy before me has got Mexican plates, okay? He's got Mexican plates. He sails straight through. The guy pulls me and my model buddies over, and we go over and we have to declare all our model kits. Make a long story short, as soon as we go into the customs office, because we've never been pulled over, me and these 3 other guys, and we got gray hair, and the 2 young custom guys goes, all right, how much you guys buy? And we said, I don't know, like we're just down there for a couple hours, but okay, $500. And he said, each? And I said, no, amongst all of us. He goes, all right, who the hell pulled you over? And then we pointed, he looks up the little roster and he kind of rolls his eyes, and then he goes, have a nice day, guys. So I know we're being filmed, but why are they pulling over? Like, what's the profile here, right? A bunch of modelers, really? Anyways.
Well, maybe
I actually have
I could give you guys a list of
problem.
Yeah.
I could give you guys a list of my kits, and then you can just wrap them up and float them down the Niagara River. Find
Yeah,
some
just
place
bag the
to-
decals beforehand.
How far are you, Mark, from Section 8?
What is Section 8?
At the hobby store in Buffalo, like how far are you from the hobby stores in
Oh
Buffalo?
yeah. Well, I went out there with Frank Berry from Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We were like 4.5 hours, but it real
Wow.
fast
Wow.
because he is a Vietnam vet, Distinguished Flying Cross. So I got to hear a lot of stories. The time went fast.
Yeah, you're farther than us because on a good drive, we can make it there in like less than 2 hours, right, from Toronto. Once crossing the border, but there you go.
Are you
Actually, quick question of,
Are you closer to Manhattan, Mark?
Yeah, I'm about 75 miles north, and we really don't have many hobby stores at all. We have like these accommodation stores that'll have a rack of Tamiya paints, some overpriced kits, but they're really in the RC business, So
yeah,
considering you had Pokes back in the day.
Yeah, Polk's. Yeah. Do you remember Polk's on Manhattan? Polk's Hobby Shop? That's going way back. That's going way back. Yeah, I don't think there are any hobby stores on Manhattan anymore, are there, Mark?
Yeah, it's something I saw a video the other day called Red Engine.
Okay. Okay.
Well, Toys R Us sells model kits as well in New York City.
Sorry, Ming?
Toys R Us in New York City sells model kits.
Really?
Yeah.
FAO.
I've been living there for some time, but I saw that over there when I was there 2 years back.
Nice.
Yeah.
quick question for Matt. What was the tool that you showed? The name of it?
The file father stuff?
Oh, the drill?
Oh, sorry. It's a Tack Life power tool, rotary tool.
Okay, thanks. Tack Life. Excellent.
Yeah, Amazon.ca. And if you basically just keep watching it for about 2 or 3 weeks, it's, well, at least used to. I don't know if it still does, but it used to go on sale for like 22. Nowadays, probably $25, something like that. So it routinely went on sale.
Yeah, I just need an inexpensive one.
Yeah. And I've been using it for a year and a half, and it's brilliant.
And I know what Vince said.
Yeah. And put it this way, if it lasts a year or two for that price, you know,
it's worth
I'm not going to complain. And it's basically a 1/8 chuck.
Right.
It's standard everything. So
And I just posted the link to the one I got in Amazon.
Oh, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, John. So, any guys, any news on any shows that you guys know of in Canada? I haven't heard a thing.
I did in Guelph in January. They said they were planning on running their show in November, but
They're moving it possibly to January.
well, no, in January of this year. They're planning on doing their show this year.
Yeah, I haven't heard a thing. I don't see Alan on the call. I have no idea what's going on with
I haven't
Hamilton.
posted in the update whether they're still doing that or not. I don't know.
Right.
I heard Hamilton's now going to be next March.
Oh, is that right?
Back in the usual time. I was on their club.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Kevin. Not assuming that this D variant doesn't go here.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
fourth and or fifth wave notwithstanding.
Notwithstanding. What's it like, Mark, down there? Is it bad now or what? What's it
Well,
happening?
we're right in between opening up things and shutting things down.
Okay.
So they say it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So cases are starting to surge. In fact, I've got an AMPS meeting next week I may have to cancel because I don't want people getting together.
Right.
And you know, and we have you've heard of these anti-vaxxers, right?
Yes, we have them here in Canada too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they I don't want to get them in trouble, even though I'm at an outdoor great pavilion outside in a sports complex. However, like at the same time that they're shutting things down, I was able to get two of my clubs meeting rooms in a local library. So it's just like a communication cross thing where, you know, places are closing up and places are opening up. But in New York now, they're talking about to go in a restaurant, you'll need proof of vaccination.
Right.
Oh, really?
Passport.
Passport.
And what is Andrew Cuomo going to need to continue?
He's going to need a good lawyer. That's what he's
I
going
don't
to
know
need.
where he's going to go.
Multiple of
He
them.
might have to go north of the border.
No.
We got our own problems.
They don't want him.
We have enough idiot politicians.
We already it comes our way, that news too, man. Right.
Just talking about shows, there is no shows this year, right, in Canada?
Maybe Guelph is what I'm hearing, but we haven't heard that confirmed. And
I
Kevin
see.
just mentioned Heritage Con is in March, perhaps. So nothing.
So the Great Toronto Train Show or whatever it is usually in the fall. I don't know if that might happen. It's a fun show. It's out in Brampton, and if you're into trains, there's tons of layouts and stuff. I mean, it's a different perspective, but Torcan isn't going to happen, or it's come and gone.
Yeah.
It's past the time already, right? Talking.
We're just waiting for confirmation. Yeah, we're just waiting for confirmation on Guelph.
Hey, is Capcom? Capcom is every 2 years, right?
Yeah.
When's the next one, Glenn? When's the next Capcom?
Yeah, well, that's still up in the air too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is the War Museum open now?
Not really.
So, Glenn, when was the last Capcom? Was it 2019?
2019. Yeah, it was supposed to be this year, but then we have to start planning a year in advance at least. And the first thing is we have to get the venue.
Right.
And with all this going on, there's no way we could secure the venue. We didn't know what the regulations were going to be doing. Even now, if we wanted to get something for 2022, we would have to start planning pretty much now, securing the venue. And right now, they can't guarantee what things are going to be like.
Right.
And down
Same thing with
payments. I take it down payments aren't returnable, or how does that all work?
It's not really the financial aspect. It's getting together the contract. We have to renegotiate a contract each year. And you know, it's a lot of money that they're spending to make this thing happen. So it really is a quite intensive partnership. But if they can't guarantee that you're going to have, you know, X amount of people are allowed in any one room, it kind of blows it out of the water right there.
Yep.
So
Oh.
we shall see. It's month to month. We're looking at things and the way that we see things progressing, but we're in communication with the people at the War Museum again.
Now you guys up in Ottawa, is there's no barriers on the bridge to Quebec, right? It's all open, right?
Oh, it's all open now.
Okay. All right, guys. My God, it's 2 hours already. Any last closing comments? We can.
I just want to say I'm very glad to meet everybody.
Oh, great!
And
man.
I hope
Same here.
to
Welcome,
continue to
welcome,
join
Dave.
this meeting. And and I learned quite a bit today.
Good.
Getting me back to the hobby a little bit, getting me in tune to doing the hobby, doing the models. So hopefully very soon I can show you something that new work, not the past work. But
oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
hopefully there are other obligations, but I'm working on it.
Great. Yeah, I always tell.
Harvey.
Yeah.
Sorry. About, you said you were doing an article on the Lee for a magazine or a book?
It's a book. It's not a book. Yeah. It's going to be a book on Commonwealth armor.
Excellent. You'll
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
us when it comes out.
Yeah. It's yes, a book. I'm not leading it, but they asked me to put something in it. So
Good stuff.
yeah, I'm
Great.
not. Yeah. So we're not meeting anytime soon either. Face to face. We haven't had any go at our usual. So we'll continue with the Zoom. When we do start meeting, I'd love to hear some input as to how you guys want us to continue, because I think the Zoom thing is really good, right? So how do we keep going with this and not just have our face to face and then we don't see Mark anymore and everything? I think we can do a bit of a hybrid, or we do it another night.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because
Yeah.
it seems to work,
One time,
right?
One live and one on.
Yeah.
Zoom would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because then we don't see Glenn, we don't see Mark, we don't see a bunch of the other guys here, right? That are from other places. So we'll find a way. But right now we're not meeting face to face anytime soon.
Yeah. By the way, where was the location, or where will be the location?
We were meeting up at Bayview and Shepherd at the Loblaws up there.
Okay.
Right in the cooking classroom, and we're not charging memberships now. So until we do face to face, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Ciao.
On that.
Yeah.
Have a
Good
great
presentation, Harvey.
Thank you, guys. Happy modeling.
Happy modeling.
Indeed, but thanks for the